Well, I just did a math problem here. How long have I known my good friend Bill? 35 years. And we started out when we were kids in broadcasting, and I've known him throughout the year. And he is a survivor. This story you'll hear with Bill Palanuk. Well, okay, he quit smoking, he quit chewing, he quit drinking, all addictions. He has a hole in his heart. He had a stroke, a near death experience. Yes. And at the end of this interview, there is a bomb that he will drop that he mentioned just in passing only a few weeks before we did this interview. And it is the beginning of another conversation with this man I can only describe as a survivor from the land of North Dakota, an original cowboy and an amazing story. Please enjoy our conversation with Bill Palanuk. Well, I'm Jeff Gould, America's storyteller, and one of the things that drives me crazy is our lack of curiosity. If we just spent a little time focusing on the person right next to you, the things that you would learn. I have known Bill Palanuk for, I don't know, it's been a long time. And the things I continue to learn about this man are so insightful and so helpful. And when you're watching this interview, I want you to imagine who is right next to you in your life that you just really don't know anything about, and what power there is in developing these deeper relationships. This conversation will be very, very powerful, and I know you'll get a lot of stuff from it. So please click subscribe, hit the notification bell because we send out notifications all the time. And please stay tuned for another great episode of I Like That Story. Well, Bill, my friend, how are you this fine day?
Best day of my life. I get
Yeah.
to talk to one of my heroes, and yeah, I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for asking.
So I'm going to read so people know who you are, but this is just going to be the tip of the iceberg. 43 years in broadcasting. That's where we first met. Currently in Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Got another place in Baker, Montana. You do voiceover work. Great voice, as people can hear. You are the founder and co-host of a trending TV show, Western Edge Living. Is that a logo I see behind you?
It
That,
is.
my friend, is
Yep.
excellent. Hold that finger up. That's excellent product placement. That is how you stay in business. You're a stroke survivor. I'm not going to describe the procedure, but I will have you describe the story. It's fascinating. I did not know this, that you were asked to try out for the Atlanta Braves as a stadium announcer, made it to the top 6. Those turkeys, they had no idea how close they were.
No, they were pretty much spot on, as I'll tell you when we get there.
Recorded audio for an audition project honoring victims and survivors of the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting in Las Vegas in 2017. I was at that venue like 3 months after that. It was, oh boy, it was spooky. Yeah, anyway, so it's going to be a great conversation. Now, you know, Bill, we kind of prompted you some stuff. We sent you some questions to ask so we could kind of figure this out as we went. So we weren't just blindsiding you. So I sent you a bunch of questions just for fun. And then, of course, you'll have a chance to ask one question and only one question. We're going to save that to the end. I'm not just going to leave you out there with me peppering you. You will get one question and one question only at the end. Are you ready, sir?
Let's do this. I'm glad to be here for sure.
So you got a Jeopardy board sent to you. What was your Jeopardy question? Which one would you like to select, sir?
You are history is what I prepped for.
Okay. You are history. Okay, interesting. Do you want to pick a dollar amount or just have me go for it?
Leonard, go ahead. You pick.
If you had to be transported into history and stay there, where would you go?
Probably 1950s California before it got so crazy on that side of the country. It's got such a great history, and there's so much beauty in that state. The ranches, the coastline. I've been to California one time, And I knew before I went there, I just knew that I was going to fall in love with it. I kind of had already been fascinated with California. But in 2026, that's a little different story in California. But yeah, 1950s California.
And yeah, think of the different stories. I mean, you could go to Bakersfield and kind of get in
Bakersfield.
on that sort of music scene.
Yeah,
You could go up to
absolutely.
California. I'm sorry, to San Francisco, and
Yeah,
just the
Bay.
beginnings of that sort of music vibe. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I just I've always loved California, and then visiting there. My cousin was living there. He lived in San Jose, and it was in 2018, I believe. My wife and I spent a week in San Jose. We went to Alcatraz, of course, went over the Bay Bridge, saw all of that. Went to a beer and bacon festival at Levi's Stadium, and the home of the 49ers. And we came up with this delicacy that they served, and we still make it to this day. You take a wheat wafer
Hmm.
and you put peanut butter on it, a
Yeah, yeah.
tomato, and bacon. And if that, I know it sounds a little extreme, but Jeff, it's so good, so good. And so that's a memory of being in California. Went to the redwood forest and
Wow.
geez, stood inside those redwood trees that are,
Hmm.
you know, they get struck by lightning and they burn on the inside, and there's still the shell, and you can stand inside of them. And gosh, that was a very fast week. We ate, went down to Fisherman's Wharf, had the best crab you could ever imagine while we're looking at these sea lions out in the in the water. I really like California, but I know it's kind of a slippery slope with how crazy things can
Well,
be out.
so my wife and I took my dad's little Mazda Miata 1991 Roadster, and we went on a 16-state trip. One of the destinations was to go down the coastline of California. But I'm going to tell you the truth. When we look back at it, do you know what state we liked the most?
North Dakota,
That's exactly right.
North Dakota. Yeah,
Yeah,
we visited when you were here,
yeah, yeah,
and
and I'll tell you why. That's the only state that nobody was in a hurry on.
really
Well,
okay.
we did not take the interstates, right? We took the scenic route, and the
What
scenic
were the
route,
highways?
the scenic route is almost invariably not too far away from an interstate. And
Right.
yet, how many states were we at where you're like, hey, buddy, just go over 4 miles and go down to it? No, no, they're right behind me, super impatient because they want to go 80 on a 55-mile-an-hour road. But in North Dakota, oh, it's just beautiful.
Well,
I can't,
since you've been here, Jeff, we
yeah,
have raised the speed limit on the interstate to 80 miles an hour.
yeah,
I believe South Dakota, that took place a few years ago.
okay.
And yeah, so now everybody's going 83.
Well, I'd like to say that I'm not one of those, but I got to be honest. If you could have an honest conversation with anybody in history, who would you talk to?
Anybody in history? That's happening right here, right now.
No.
Enjoy our time. I know that that's probably it's not a cop out either, Jeff. I've always admired you. I've listened to your stories from sitting outside your studio, and our journey has kind of parallel, mirroring each other, and
So Bill and I worked at the same radio station combo. And I would always joke about this, but it's pretty true, right? So I worked on the AM dial and Bill worked on the FM dial. And here's how you could tell the difference between the two. The AM guy shows up 45 minutes before the show, turns on all of the lights, turns off all of the sound, and go make some coffee. The FM guy shows up 2 minutes after his show starts, shuts off all the lights, cranks up all the sound, and lights a cigarette.
pretty much nailed it. That's pretty much how it was. But if I can continue, Jeff, you know,
Sure,
the
sure.
owners of the radio station, I was there just a short while before you arrived. And the owners of the radio station were grooming us to welcome this new talent that's coming in on the AM side. And they said, you have never heard stories told the way that Jeff Gould tells stories. And I was enamored by that. I thought, wow, what's this guy all about? So I would put on, let's see, Hotel California, 6.5 minutes or something like that, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven, the longer songs. And I'd go out in the hallway and I'd sit outside your studio and listen to you paint pictures with words. And I think that's where the seed became planted, right then, right there.
I'll be honest with you. So I
Please
was
do.
working. I was working on the AM dial, and we had, we would get out the ratings, and the ratings would come out twice a year, and it was like the worst week of our lives because we got hammered, and we got hammered. You guys always did really well. So while you were maybe listening to my stories, I was looking at the ratings, going, "Dang it, dang it."
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we pulled that off by showing up 2 minutes late and smoking a cigarette before we went
Well,
on the air.
as you know, and I think people who are maybe new to broadcasting because they're podcasters, there's a certain discipline that you get from broadcasting. And the main thing is that there is a discipline involved, but you should also be true to yourself and you should also have fun. And
Yes,
you can't and you
exactly.
can't and you can't make those up, and you just have to show up and be that. And
Well, I
that
think
was your nature, right? I think it still is. Yeah.
right, right, and, there was some level of PTSD that was developed while being in radio because, for example, you had to account for every single second of every single minute of every single hour for 4 hours every Monday through Friday, and, when you're late, the radio station goes silent.
Mhm.
Oh, now, of course, we have the computer automation systems and everything, but back then there was if you do that long enough, geez, I've been doing it for probably longer than I should, but here we are. You develop some level of PTSD from what I've learned. What PTSD actually is, there's higher levels of PTSD that affect us, in more serious ways, but boy, that's one of them. Perhaps I'll have an opportunity to share with what I've learned about PTSD at some point.
Well, absolutely. We'd like to tell you what we're going to do is warm up the audience. We'll kind of work through this list, and then we'll get down into the meat and potatoes because the story of Bill Palanuk is fascinating. But first, okay, what's one piece of inside helpful information, your secret sauce that people don't know in your line of work? And you've done a lot of different things, but what's some behind the scenes stuff that people just don't know or aren't aware of?
Um, that I don't prepare much. I don't have a you spent a lot of time prepping your show. I mean, and you that we joke around that I showed up late and did my thing, but somehow I pulled that off without preparing. And to this very day, Jeff, I'm still that way. In fact, right now, this week on Western Edge Living, we have the governor of the state of North Dakota, and I just went in shooting from the hip, and I just absolutely loved that. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just more spontaneous, I guess, if you will. You kind of course, you'll put a template of questions that you want to ask the governor and the current events, and if you're aware of your environment, what's happening in your state, why the conversations flows if you have a genuine interest in what's going on. So yeah, I don't really do a
I
lot of
support that. I
yeah.
support that. And in fact, I think there's Larry King back in the day would say that he'd like to know nothing about his guys because he said, well, most of my audience doesn't know anything.
You know what
And you
I
think,
want to
well,
do? I talked to the TV station that I'm affiliated with, and the news director kind of gave me a deer in the headlight look when I said, I want to challenge one of your reporters where we come in and we do an interview. We sit down and we prep like you and I did just 10 minutes ago, but we don't know who's coming in. We don't know who's going to walk in that door and sit down. And we have to have a 10-minute seamless conversation with that person. I think that would just be a riot. Maybe you and I could do that sometime.
well, if you pay attention, that is the difference between television and radio because television, You actually can have a teleprompter. You actually can use a script. And somebody's in your ear saying, okay, we got to get to break in 30 seconds. But, as a radio guy, you have to fill that yourself because there's no time. You have to fill a lot of space and you don't have time for scripts. So you develop this habit of playing off each other and being in the moment and just hearing what they're saying and reacting to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and one other thing, Jeff, that I told you once here a few months back, and you reacted to it when I said that we don't do interviews on Western Edge Living. We don't do interviews. We have conversations, and I've heard that word used several times by your producer here and by yourself. It's conversations. Interviews to me are what news people do, gathering sound bites. Oh, they don't have a seamless conversation, but like what we're doing right now, I think is a talent, and I'm proud to say that that's kind of how we roll. The mantra for Western Edge Living is interesting conversations with interesting people
Yeah.
about interesting things, and
Yeah.
that's basically it. So yeah, I like the word
I,
conversation.
when you pay attention and you're listening to a newscast, television or audio, how many times is it a fake conversation?
Yeah,
Bill, we're in front of the Capitol building and we just had a chance to talk to the governor of the state. Well, Jeff, what did he say about the foreign policy? And then I immediately have an answer. That was not a real conversation. That was a
yeah.
lead in to the next part of your story. And I just like, come on, be genuine. Why
Funny you
did
should
they do
say that.
that?
Funny you should
Yeah.
say that because Good Morning America was just out here yesterday, and they filmed at the soon to open Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, and the anchor at back of the studio in New York or wherever they're from said, "Hey, the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library just opened, and we have so and so there right now."
Mm.
Well, the library is not opening until July 4th, our 250th birthday. And so, but nothing was corrected. And it seems like, yeah, when transition between thoughts, when you transition between my turn to talk and your turn to talk, it's awkward, to say the least. If you know you want to put it that way, but yeah, I prefer a seamless conversation, just like we're doing right here, right now. It's awesome. Yep. That's what I want to do. I'm a big Dan Rather wannabe also. He does a show called The Big Interview. I don't think he's doing any new episodes now. He's in his 80s, close to 90, I think. But he talks to people, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Sammy Hagar, Brett Michaels from Poison, Carly Simon. And he does such a great job because he's so generally interested in what that person has to say. And taking that another step, I noticed that I have a conscious thought about that because that's one thing that my mother taught me. She was a journalist and she interviewed Ukrainian immigrants on cassette tapes and she wrote a book on it. But she said, she always told me, she said, the best interviewers are the best listeners because you're actually listening to what that person is saying. And then when you ask them a question based on something that they just told you subliminally, that tells that person that you are generally interested in what they're saying. And so, watching Dan Rather do that, and I try to do that,
So
you
I
got
think
to be.
that's her. I think that's her book right there. Is that the blue? It's a blue book. My finger's pointing to it. I think.
I don't
I
think
think.
so. I don't think that's it.
All right. Well, it's
That's your book. Oh,
no,
I
the one
can't
at
see
the
it.
the spine there. Anyway, so it's a great question. I've often wanted to ask that, so I will ask it now. With the war in Ukraine, what would your mom say? What would you say? You have a lot of Ukrainian immigrants in North Dakota. What are they saying? What's just kind of the sense of the Senate?
Well, to be honest with you, I've kind of I haven't defected, but I've when my mother passed away in 2020, the organization that she co-founded, and drove with fierce passion, and they filed a lawsuit against me. They sued me, and they served papers on me um, 1 month after my mother's funeral. And it was 2 weeks before Christmas. So Christmas Eve, we had dinner, and then I had to fill out a 110 question deposition. So as you can, all I'll say is I pray for those people. I really do. I pray for the Ukrainian people. Um, but as far as what's happening in North Dakota and promoting Ukrainian culture and things, it's not what the way that Agnes Palanuk intended. And God bless those people. They're using the faculties that are available to them. I don't know if they got their 15 minutes of satisfaction by suing me. I pushed real hard when they had a change of administration, and pushed a new president to, let's drop this already. This is insane, which she did eventually. But the relationship between us is forever tarnished. I have attempted to send an olive branch to him. And yeah, and so having said that, there are people, as I understand, raising money for Ukraine and things like that. I pray for those people. It's just a tarnished relationship that I don't think will ever be what it was.
This morning, we are connected on Facebook. I want just to read your post from this morning. Okay, that kind of tells a little bit about Bill Palanuk and his life. Stop smoking, stop chewing, stop drinking, start counseling, have a stroke, fall backwards off a stage, discovering and repairing a hole in one's heart, more counseling, altered friendships, 8 different meds, maintain a TV show and 2 radio programs, upcoming shoulder replacement. Good luck with that.
It gets to be a lot, Jeff. Was I looking for sympathy? Not really, but kind of, because when you post something like that, maybe you're feeling a little bit sorry for yourself, and you've had a rough night of no sleep. You have an interview coming up that afternoon that you're nervous about. You rely on your people, your fan base, if you will, your friends, to lift you back up. Saying I was intentionally looking for sympathy by making that post, but I just needed a little boost this morning. And that's all true. Yeah, I quit smoking at an Aerosmith concert in, I think it was 2017, something like that. And I was also smoking and chewing tobacco. I chewed tobacco since I was a youngster. I quit that. Then my heart started fluttering. I had to go on some medication, and excuse me. And let's see. Then we had the stroke in February.
Okay, now just hold just a second. I'm going to go a little slower on this. You quit smoking and you quit chewing, and then your heart gives you trouble. I thought it would be the opposite. I thought your heart would say, "Oh, thanks, no more nicotine. We're good now."
Well, the big picture, Jeff, is eventually they found that I had a hole in my heart. And when you quit things like drinking, smoking, chewing tobacco, it alters your stress level and how you deal with stress, how your body physically
I see.
deals with stress. And so that's kind of what one thing led to another. So yeah, we quit drinking, and then
I'll get to there, but first,
okay.
now the smoking. A lot of people will say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know I shouldn't smoke. I know I shouldn't chew." And then they just don't. They just keep going. What was it that finally made you say enough's enough?
I just was sick of it. I mean, how insane is that? Smoking and chewing? Oh my God! That's I have relatives, uncles, and acquaintances that were doing that, and it's just all of a sudden. I mean, well, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, but eventually you're just thinking this is insanity to be ingesting that much nicotine into your body every day.
Now,
The
one guy I heard
smell.
say, I heard a guy say yesterday, he gave us smoking, and then he stopped and said, "Brother, that's a relationship." And I thought, interesting, because it isn't just a drug. It is a relationship. What makes cigarette smoking so hard to get rid of?
Well, it's your go-to stress reliever. It's your go-to. It calms your nerves. I would think I'd spent so long. I don't know, but to quit, I just woke up with that morning and I said, today I'm going to quit. I'm not going to say I quit, but I'm going to consider myself a non-smoker. And it was not easy, but I got through it, and I haven't had a cigarette since. Chewing, on the other hand, whoa, whoa, that was difficult. That was hard. I would chew gum and eat toothpicks like I was mad at them. In fact, I still have toothpicks right here on my desk. I don't crave it any longer. I'm over it. But that was really, really difficult. I remember, leaving the house, getting into the vehicle and heading somewhere and not feeling that round can in my back pocket and just panic. Oh my God. And you turn around or you go to a store to replenish your supply. It's insanity when you stop and think about it. And I just got tired of it. And
How
so,
long did it take you to, for people who think, I'm going to try this, how long of a road before you say, I think I've kicked this?
I think it was day by day it got easier, but to answer your question in those terms, I think it was probably 2 months. 2 months of gutting it out. Never once said, let's try a little bit. Let's slip. I never once did that. And I think my wife took a video of me. I'm mowing grass in the yard, and I'm just chowing on a stick of gum, and she was thought it was pretty hilarious. But we got through it, and somehow it's all behind me now. No cravings for any nicotine whatsoever.
Did your wife smoke at all?
Yeah, she did too. Yep,
Did
and
you both
she
quit at
still
the
does
same time?
occasionally. She quit. I think she quit first. She quit in November, and I quit the following July. And she kind of slipped here a little bit. She smokes occasionally now and then, but just a puff here and there. Uh, but for the most part, we don't smoke in the house and or any of our buildings. Um, yeah,
I would think that would
she's
make it harder because now you both, and even if one of you doesn't smoke and the other, it's a relationship. It's two people figuring out, and you can just see one of them say, "Oh, for gosh sakes, just go back and smoke. I'm tired of you being just that guy all day, the guy who's trying to kick it, right?" You got to go. Did you decide to go into it together? Or did you just get up and say, well, how come you're not smoking? Nah, I quit 2 days ago or whatever. What was that like?
Boy, good question. She quit and she was okay with it. In fact, that thinking that I'm a non-smoker rather than I quit smoking was her way of stopping smoking as much as she was. She said, I'm a non-smoker," and pretty much that took care of it. She did great. I mean, she didn't have any cravings, but me on the other hand, I had chewing tobacco to fall back on, so there was that. I mean, Jeff, I would sleep with that junk in my mouth. How insane is that? That is just
Now,
wow.
did you have the pouches or did you have just the raw stuff in there?
Copenhagen, Copenhagen, the raw cut Copenhagen.
Now,
Oh,
I work with guys and they'd say, well, I had to switch and they show their gum. It just looked terrible. That's
or
why
they walk around with a bottle to spit in. We have a rental house in nearby Dickinson, and we had a renter that would do that big old, mouthful of chewing tobacco, walking around with this gross looking bottle. I just despise
so
that.
note to the viewer, if you're at somebody's house and there's like a bottle of soda that's half full, okay, don't, because you
Leave it,
never know.
leave it there.
That's
Yes,
that's a bad that's
exactly.
a bad day. So how
Yeah.
long between the cigarettes did you say, okay, cigarettes, now it's onto the chewing tobacco?
Um, I was doing both at the same time, so I just stopped smoking and just continued chewing.
Yeah, but when did you then say, okay, now I got rid of the smoking. Now I'm going to be done with the chewing.
I think that was probably 2 or 3 years after I quit smoking that I
Interesting.
have the dates written on my desk right behind me here. But anyway, I think it was um, about 2 or 3 years at between smoking cigarettes, giving that up, and then, stopping chewing.
I was a tour guide at a historic fort in Fort Snelling. And so we would portray soldiers in the 1820s, and everybody was chewing. That was a very common thing, was leaf tobacco. And I remember a guy, and he was from, I think, Norway. And now listen to this. It was a kind of chewing tobacco with cut glass in it, little tiny pieces of cut glass. And why? Because you develop a callus and it would cut through that and just be a main line into your bloodstream.
That is insanity.
That is what I thought.
Oh my god.
That you'd never heard of that, I guess.
No, I have
Hmm,
not.
hmm.
Wow.
Did you have to, switch sides of your mouth because it'd be like a part of it would get just like, you know what I'm talking about.
3 options, 1 on each side and 1 in the lip, yep. So when we met, Jeff, I was chewing. I'd chew
Sure.
on the air
Yeah.
I
Sure.
mean, I
Yeah. Yeah.
started chewing, I think, in high school, and it was every single day from high school until here just a few years back that I would, you know, be chewing, Copenhagen.
And then you also,
I'm so glad I'm over that. I'm so glad that it doesn't control me any longer, that I've risen above it and I've conquered that stuff. It's hard when I tell friends that, chew that, if you can't quit chewing, I understand. I get that because it is difficult. One of the most difficult things that I've ever done was putting the, Copenhagen away. And the way I did it, I always thought that I wanted to quit, and I got up one morning, and we live out in the country, and we're 16 miles from the nearest store. And so I woke up and I looked, and I was just about out of Copenhagen. Oh my God, I got to rearrange my schedule and run to town and get a can. And I thought, that is just dumb. That is just stupid. So I dumped out what I had left and haven't touched it since.
you didn't go back an hour later and lick it off the floor. None of that. Okay.
No, I sure didn't.
So, and then, then you gave up drinking. Talk about that.
Yeah, I hit rock bottom. Ironically, it was on August 11th, which, is 811, call before you dig. That was,
Uh,
979 days ago. In fact, it was in Sioux Falls where I had my last drink. Um, I'm a sinner. I'm the son of a sinner, and then who is also the son of a sinner. And we were all, controlled by alcohol, and it caused some problems in my life between my wife and I. And got tired of that too. I got tired of that lifestyle, sinking to a low that I've never sunk to before. And I remember, driving back from Sioux Falls that August, a couple days after that, and I had the windows and the pickup open, and I didn't listen to anything on the radio all the way home. I called several acquaintances, and I informed them that um, I am powerless over alcohol. And their reactions their reaction was, "Oh my god, that is fantastic." Well, I was puzzled by that. I did not expect that. I
hmm,
expect, "Oh, Bill, we're so sorry.
hmm,
What are we
hmm.
gonna do?" No, they were ecstatic, and I was puzzled by that. Now, with, almost, 1,000 days sober, or not drinking, I should say, I get that. You take the first step, it's worth rejoicing. And so, yeah, I'm in the program, and I have a great support group that I lean on quite extensively, and I'm growing. And you get subtle reminders, where I'm at today with alcohol, that you still have work to do, and it's never going to end. I'll have a bad day, and the thought will cross my mind, man, a drink would fix this. and and that's okay as long as you don't you leave it at that as a thought, and you process your way through it. You rely on your people, and you work your way through it. It's because you've grown. It's not. It's a wake up call, so to speak. That you still have work to do, and it's never gonna change. And so, yeah, when I was in Sioux Falls, Jeb, oh my God, you know, um, gosh, we lived the rock star lifestyle. I mean, we had, you know, uh, popular radio stations. We had people who were sending accolades our way, and just, you get all this praise and everything. And not only that, I was using the air name Bill Daniels, Wild Bill. I also used up here. Um, and you got to be that person. You got to be Bill Daniels, the rock star, the super jock, you know, and Bill Palanuk is swept under the rug, and you don't have to deal with his problems. And so you maintain that lifestyle that you think your audience, expects, especially when I was at the country station in Sioux Falls. That, oh man, there was times there me and another announcer would decide to go out, and then we'd have a challenge. Let's leave our wallets in a pickup or in a vehicle and see how many people we can get to buy us drinks. Not very proud of that, but it did happen, and so my dad was an alcoholic. His dad was an alcoholic. His dad died from a heart attack at 48. We got a history of heart problems in the family. And so I say, quit drinking 1,000 days ago, but I it took a while to get sober. Um, the
What do you
program that
talk about that? What's the difference between that?
um, the program doesn't help you to not drink. It teaches you how to be sober and process things. And when you're wrong, promptly admit it. And um, how to help other people. In order to keep it, Jeff, you have to give it away. And so you share with other people. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Once you get in there and start working it and live by the principles, it's a beautiful place to be.
And you're
I,
talking about AA, I'm assuming, right?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
What's that? I saw a movie and there's a sign on the wall that said like one drink is too much and 100 is not enough or something like
Yep.
that. Is
Yep.
that what it says? Is
Exactly.
that yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I did not have the ability to have one drink. It's like you just mentioned, 100 is, yeah. Yeah, today I'm not drinking. I don't know what tomorrow is. I'll worry about that when it gets here.
I find that so fascinating that you know to the exact day. So I don't even know what today's date is. I think I do. I got to look at it on my calendar. I think I know
An
I'm
app.
60.
I
Yeah.
have an app on my phone. Um, let's see.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and it's got your daily reflection, and it's got a gratitude list. So my morning routine, I think I sent you a picture of what my morning view is like, and I'll sit there, I'll fill out my gratitude list, and just you know listen to my daily reflection, and I pray. And I even my birthday was about a month ago, and my wife got me a man's Bible for my birthday,
Does
and
that have more pictures in it? Does
no,
that have more pic?
no pictures. Um, but I was having a bad day last week, and a guy says, it's easy to, you know, um, praise God when things are going great in your life, but when things aren't going so good, then when you really need them. And he told me that, and I'm going to live by those words forever. And I came home and I read about the crucifixion and the resurrection, and it just brings balance and peace into your life. And
Mhm.
that's a big part of the AA program.
Yeah, I every morning when I get up, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for in the last 24-hour period. So it's small stuff. It's just like, wow, the smell of mown grass is pretty, and I didn't hurt myself when I was working on the change. Just small things,
You
but
know,
it developed. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
I had a cold here not too long ago, a bad cold, and I woke up and in my gratitude list, I wrote, "I'm grateful for this cold." Because it shows me what it's like to feel good when you don't have a cold.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, and a good night's sleep when you have a bad night's sleep. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for, only having 4 hours of sleep because when you have 6 hours of sleep, it shows you the difference between the two. And I live by this, Jeff. The last several years, there's 7 things that I live for: God, love, forgiveness, gratitude, serenity, courage, and wisdom. In that order, particularly.
Well, I
Um,
sure hope that Booker catches that. We'll put the graphic up. You said it in a hurry. Go ahead, say it a
okay.
little slower. I got to write it down. God, love, yeah,
Forgiveness,
forgiveness, okay,
gratitude,
gratitude.
serenity, courage, and wisdom.
You know, sometimes I'll go through my list and say, which one of these things could I really use today for the next 24 hours? I'm going to say courage. Probably what I need more than anything. Of course, I start, but I feel like that's probably in my tank. That's what I could use more of, is a little bit of courage, serenity. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really so. You talked about your dad. Your dad was an alcoholic as well,
Yes, he was.
and your relationship with him was not good.
It was horrible. Um, Let me just preface this. I know where you're going with this, Jeff, and I was asked to give the keynote address at the Memorial Day celebration, May 30th, coming up in Belfield, North Dakota, because I shared my story with a guy that the commander of the American Legion in that town. And I told him the story. He had me on speakerphone with his wife. And a few days later, he called and said, that's an amazing story. Would you give the keynote speech at the Memorial Day celebration? And I'm like, holy cow, this is my opportunity because um, it's going to involve the Billings County Veterans Memorial in Medora, which he and I are working together on to try to bring awareness to it. The library is going to be opening here this summer, and you Google or you search for the Billings County Veterans Memorial, and nothing comes up. So he and I started working on that. I take particular interest in that because at the Billings County Veterans Memorial, I think there's 3 big slabs of granite, and it says Billings County Veterans Memorial across the top. And there's columns of names of all the Billings County residents who served in foreign wars. And at the very top of that monument, my dad's name is top dead center, right in the middle. Below that, his dad's name, my grandfather. Not only that, but another level of mystique to that whole thing. It was dedicated on May 30th, 1994. My dad was gone, but May 30th is my father's birthday. And so for them to ask me to give the keynote speech at the Memorial Day, excuse me, at the Memorial Day celebration, that is my father's 100th birthday. So we're going to come clean, and I hope you and I can visit again. I'm not ready to go there yet, Jeff. I know, we've talked about that before. But yeah, I had a pretty tragic childhood. And, when you're asked to give the keynote speech, you'll agree. Tell me if you agree with this. I think there's 3 main things that they look for. There's 3 main things that are possibly the reason why they ask you to give that keynote speech. One, you're entertaining. However, I don't believe that on a Memorial Day celebration, entertaining is a word that I would use for the speaker. The other Another reason is advice. I might have a little bit of advice to give on something that has worked for me, and or you have a story to share, and that's going to be my story. And I'm hoping, well, is it going to take courage? It's going to take strength. I do know that it's going to take strength to do this. I've been mentally preparing for this for like 40 some years. And it's going to take strength more so than courage, because to me, courage is living with the memory of one day you're fighting in a foreign land and it's against an enemy that you can't see. And the very next day, you're being spit upon at the tarmac in California when you get off the plane. Which is living with the memory of standing on the hull of a ship that has been overturned in the harbor and you hear tapping coming from inside. That's courage, to live with a memory. What I'm going to do, it takes strength, not courage, that living with those kind of memories have. And so
I
that's
have a
kind of
the-
where I'm at with it.
I have a theory. I don't know if it can be proven, but I think that service clubs, your Elks, your Kiwanis, your Moose, your Lions, your Shriners, whatever, boomed after World War II because veterans could go to a place and they wouldn't even talk about their service, but they would look across and they'd say, "You served," and it would be a place that you could agree to not talk about what you went through, but you also agreed that it was hard.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't really talk about it to your family because it wasn't, you didn't want to talk about it. I fought so I didn't have to talk about this. But you could go to a third place and you could say, "So which branch were you in?" And they might say, and they say, "When did you serve?" And then if they heard it, they might look at you and say, "Yeah." And they might say, "Yeah, I served then." And then you didn't have to say any more. And I just wonder if that is what made the service clubs boom. And then as less and less people were veterans, they didn't feel the need that they had to do that.
I think just, veterans making eye contact, you know, um, they understand, they know without speaking. I think there's a lot of that. I'm looking at, giving you the keynote at the Memorial Day celebration, not being a veteran myself. This is going to be a challenge, but boy, I'm up for it. I really
Yeah,
am.
right,
I'm
right.
going to leave my analogy on what courage is. And also, I've learned a lot about PTSD. I read a book by Oprah Winfrey, and a doctor, I forget his name, but the name of the book is "What Happened to You." We have to think, with all the veteran suicide and the PTSD um, issue, we can't look at it like what's wrong with you. We have to look at it as what happened to you. And that's what she stresses in that book. For example, PTSD. There's a veteran who did two tours, served in Desert Storm, did tours in Afghanistan. He comes home. He's got a family going through, what families do. Sunday morning, they're getting ready to go to church, and we're going to leave for church at 10 o'clock. Well, it's getting to be 10 minutes till the guy starts pacing back and forth. Gets to be 5 minutes to. He's like, "Where are you? We got to go. I got the car running. We're going to leave." 10 o'clock comes. People are still scurrying about, trying to get ready. And he's just losing his mind, yelling, "Let's go. Come on. We got to move." 5 minutes after 10, they're in the car and he's singing along with the radio. The reason for that is he was in an environment when people are late, people die. that's what happened to him, and he brings that home, and it, affects the whole entire family from that. So we have to look at it, Jeff. I totally agree with Oprah that not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you.
I was talking to a woman who was a veteran, married to a veteran. And she says, "Yeah, it's hard. I mean, like when you are working and you're in a field, I mean, it's life or death. It's life or death. And now I come home and I'm making pizzas, or I'm, on an assembly line. It just seems like this life is fake, and that life was real. It was the transition is difficult, and I would say that it's the Pentagon. Their job is to defend our country. So they sharpen these swords, as in people, to a fighting edge to fight the war. And then, of course, their job is to get as many of these sharp swords as possible. And they don't have anything in the budget for what to do when the sword to beat the sword into plowshares, as we would say. They don't. There's nothing for that. They don't have anything to do with that. That's not their job. Their job was to make the fighting machine. Their job wasn't to disassemble it. And I just feel that is, I see many, many, many service organizations that have sprouted up in the last 20 years, grassroots stuff that are dealing with that very thing. And God bless them. I think they're the ones who are changing lives. I will tell you this. I did not know this, Bill, that if you're in combat and you get injured, you are assigned to a different unit. So you don't even get to go back to your old guys. So it's like you failed. And they don't, and of course, they don't say that out loud because, of course, that doesn't make sense, but it makes perfect sense. I let my team down. I can't go back to my team. In fact, I'm not even a part of my team anymore. Hmm.
That's got to be the most difficult thing ever, and we have to understand that. We have to listen. They have to be, encouraged to share these things with us. And
Mhm.
God, I pray for our veterans that this, I don't know what the statistics are for veterans who have committed suicide, but I know that number is high. And, I think we need to pay more attention to that.
So, you are, what would you describe your job as now, Bill? What are you doing?
Oh,
What do you
God.
do?
I'm a storyteller, Jeff. I am the Western
I
Edge
got
living.
that idea. Yes.
I'm so proud of the TV show that I created out of thin air. I was part
Mm,
of another TV show few years before that, and it was a 1 hour show. It aired weekly, and it was called Dakota Cowboy, and it was under the umbrella of the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame. But I would have to set up 3 cameras. I would have to set up the lighting. I would have to make sure the audio is working. Then I had to sit down and ask that person to give me 100% when I'm only giving them about 40 back because I'm worried about that camera. I'm worried about
yeah.
the audio. I'm worried about
Yeah.
the lighting. I'm trying to formulate the next question in my mind. And that to
Mhm.
me was just wrong and was so frustrating. Along with that, cowboys are wonderful. That whole genre, the Western lifestyle and things is great. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more. So I stopped doing that show and created Western Edge Living, and that opened up. I've got a studio and a film crew, and I'm sharing stories. Like I mentioned earlier, the governor of North Dakota is on this week with us, and we're also supported by the Theodore Roosevelt Foundation in Medora, North Dakota, which is the Medora musical and all the attractions in Medora. And along with that, we are also supported by the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. We're doing things with them now. They're really gearing up to really accelerate their efforts coming up in September when Medora typically would shut down for the year. And it's now going to become a year round town. So they're facilitating the services of Western Edge Living to keep the momentum going 12 months out of the year. And of course, we are also supported by our name and title sponsor, which is CHI St. Alexius Health Dickinson.
I'm
And
sorry.
so
What was the name of that? What was the name of that sponsor again? CHI.
Catholic Health Initiatives, St. Alexius Health Dickinson. They have branches all over the state. And so the one in Dickinson is the one that we're under the umbrella of. Western Edge Living, presented by CHI St. Alexius Health Dickinson. So I'm so darn proud of that program. You know, we started it. I had a stroke. We had to go off the air for 6 months. We rebooted it. I came back and the momentum didn't leave. And we're taking advantage, Jeff, of you can understand and appreciate this that in Western North Dakota, we're kind of in a local media content drought. And at the same time, we have arguably one of the biggest things to ever happen in the state of North Dakota going on. So that kind of played into our hands, and we're taking that ball and running with it as fast as we can. Upcoming.
I have to say, I cannot believe we've gone this far into the interview. We haven't even talked about your stroke. I mean,
I'm impressed that my speech has been fluid through this
yeah,
whole
right.
thing. I
Because
think
that
it's
was
a
part.
level. I think it's confidence. I think when you formulate the thought in your head and you can make the words go from your brain to your vocal cords and out to to
I
you.
think people would be astonished. There's different kinds of ways that strokes affect people, right? We haven't even talked about your stroke, and I'll lead into this by this way. There are many ways that the stroke will affect the average person. I think people would be astonished to hear that your stroke affected your speech because there's no way people would believe that how eloquent you are now is not how you were. Now, when you talk about that stroke, what happened exactly? And your dog
Well,
saved your life. That was another
yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. February 4th. It's been a year and several months that I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning because my dog Reba was is she around here? Where's Reba? Anyway, she jumped up on the bed and she's barking at me and she's licking my face. And I'm like, what the heck? This is not normal. So I thought maybe she wanted to go outside. And I tried to get up to let her out, and there was like a force holding me down on the bed. I could not lift my head off the bed. And I picked my arm up and I couldn't really recognize my arm. I'm like, what? Whose arm is this? Is Becky and is that Becky's arm? And so
You saw it as an arm, but you didn't recognize it as your arm.
I couldn't feel it. You know, there's a sensation that you have, so to speak, when you pick your arm up and there it is. You know, you're aware of it. And so I didn't recognize it. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I tried to get out of bed. And eventually I rolled off the bed onto the floor, picked myself up, and I'm like shaking myself off. I walked around and I went back to bed. I went back to bed. And I got up at 6 a.m., which is normal. And I got up and I fed the dogs and I went to let them out. And then I picked up my phone to check my phone. This was a foreign object to me. I could not figure out how to manipulate the phone and make it work. So I went to the computer, same thing. I could not figure out passwords, nothing. And so then I opened the door to the house, and I'm calling for Della, our oldest golden retriever. I'm calling, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak, and so I walked around. And I'm like, "What in the heck is going on?" And so I finally got Becky up, and she figured out I had a stroke. And I thought, well, I hope this clears up. But this is at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I hope this clears up by 8 o'clock. I got an interview I got to do today. And so she took me to the hospital, and I spent, I think, 2 or 3 days there. And I couldn't talk. I could not. It took me till that morning. It took me till almost 10 o'clock just to say thank you to the nurses in the
Did it?
at
Were
the
you
in the
making sounds? Were you making? or just
It
no
all
sound?
sounds, you
Yeah.
know, crazy sounds
Mhm.
like that. And we had we're going to the hospital, and I had to inform people that I wasn't going to make it that day. And I'd find them in my contact list, and I'd point at it and show Becky, and she had to contact these people. We went to the ER, and we laid in the ER for like 7 hours, and it was fine. It was absolutely just fine. I was Jeff. I had such a crazy sensation of peace and calm and no fear whatsoever. It was amazing. And so we were laying there for 7 hours, and I was watching um, the TV. I can't remember what was on. I think the
Yeah, just a
hunting
quick
channel.
question. Just a quick question. In times of stress, can you take yourself back there to that time? Can you find that peace again when you got it for 7 hours? Is it possible for you to recapture that or not? I'm just
I've been
curious.
I've been puzzled by it, Jeff. I have been puzzled by that. And just hear me out here. Later, a day or so later, the clergy from the hospital, a beautiful deacon by the name of Cheryl Lance, she comes into my room and to see if I needed anything from clergy. And I don't know what I told her, but I said things like, "This is amazing. I never want to forget this. I'm so peaceful. I feel so wonderful. I don't ever want." And she had this look on her face, and her eyes were full of tears. And to this day, we're good friends. And so after I got home, immediately I was really puzzled by this, and I did some searching with what I could have had a voice activated search function on our television. It led me to watching testimonies of people who have had near death experiences. Now, granted, I don't look at what I had as a near death experience. However, it was probably as close to death as I've ever been. And so I watched these testimonies. I bet you I've watched about 100 or more testimonies from there's NDE channels, near death experience, and these people share their experiences, and you're just shrouded with love, and you're shrouded with peace, and you're shrouded with the thought that you take the most beautiful thing on this planet, whether it's the fjords in Norway or the Grand Canyon or the Badlands over the hill here. You take that times 1,000, and it doesn't come close to what's waiting for us when we transition. I've changed my views on death. I don't, I will be honest here that, when I hear an acquaintance who has passed on, a small part of me goes, yes, they are flying high right now. They're doing wonderful. And, so that peace, that calm sensation, that was spiritual. That was powerful, Jeff. That was the most amazing thing ever. And to
And
this
was
day,
was this before or after you quit drinking?
well, this is all after.
Okay.
The sequence was chewing and then smoking and then chewing, then drinking, and then about a year later, I had the stroke. I think it was about a year. Anyway,
So you were on a four-step program. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right.
no, a two-step program like they had at Borrowed Bucks. Remember? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Anyway, yeah, it's been amazing, and that peace and that calm and that spiritual feeling that you get along with what you're studying in your sobriety. It's been amazing. It has been absolutely fantastic. I do not fear death. And I don't look forward to it. I don't have a death wish or anything like that. But when the time comes, buckle up, Buttercup, because it's going to be a beautiful ride. It really is.
You
And that,
know,
go ahead.
I just am struck by your story in this way. I think maybe you've heard this quote: most men lead lives of quiet desperation. When I combine that with what I see at all of these funerals where regret seems to be the most common emotion, and when people kind of get to themselves, I feel like there's two paths. They either get angry or they get desperate. Anger is a dark road you never really get back from, but desperation are amazing things happen in desperation. There's a fiction story, To Kill a Mockingbird, and I always think of this woman who was like an 85-year-old. I think she was addicted to painkillers, maybe heroin or opium, one of the two. And these two little kids, the son and daughter of Atticus Finch, had to go over and read stories to this lady. And it turns out that she was kicking her addiction to heroin. And this is what she said: she was going to die anyway. And she knew she was going to die, but she wanted to die free. And I just think of that because people say, well, I've done already enough damage to my body. There's no turning back. But, you are an example of living free. And I just think that's super powerful, man. I mean, you are an example of living free.
I don't know about that. I'll have to process that for a while.
Mm.
But I know there's, I've changed. I mean, it's changed me, Jeff. Not the same person I was just a short while ago. I'm not that same guy. I'm not, who I was, and
Does that
I
freak people out? Your old acquaintances, your old friends, are they like, what's going on with this guy? I mean, do some people gravitate towards it, or some people say, I'm not talking to him anymore? He's not the same
af-
Bill. Right?
after my stroke, certain individuals treated me differently. And I even posted on this because I was real puzzled by it. They were real standoffish, like they were going to catch something from me. And I was real puzzled by that. And I posted on it, and I went viral because everybody that also has experienced what I have were saying, yeah, it's just uncanny. I've lost friends. Uh, that that still to this day puzzles me, and I'm not
What's
going to
that
spend a
about?
I don't know. I don't know, but they treat you differently for whatever reason. I can't, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. Put it that
Yeah,
way. That's
yeah,
their
yeah.
thing, and if I'm not the same person. Maybe they're seeing something different in me. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it though. That's their thing. Um, I'm just going to continue being me. But a lot of people have agreed with me on that point that you get treated differently. So,
Well,
to
I will tell you, there's something about I would tell people when I was in radio, I would say, well, and people would lean forward and go, oh, really? And then I started working at funeral homes. And I would say, I work at a funeral home. And they would actually, I was shaking a guy's hand. And he said, what do you do? I work at a funeral home. And he pulled his hand out of mine, took two steps back and was wiping his hand on his shirt. And he couldn't get away from me fast enough. I wonder if it's proximity to mortality.
Could be,
Yeah.
could be.
I don't know.
I
Good
think the
question.
majority of people probably do fear death at some level.
Yeah. Yeah.
They denied my mother to her very last day. I think was really scared to die. She was a God fearing woman. She loved God. She knew that it was off to see her daughter who passed away in her arms on Mother's Day, but still she feared dying.
Hmm.
Like I said, I don't look forward to it in a sense, but boy, when it does come, it's going to be beautiful. And I got to continue my physical journey on this earth with that thought in mind going forward. But to continue, do we still have time? Or are we going to keep rolling
Yeah.
here?
Yeah. We can get some time.
Okay,
Yeah, we get some time.
okay. Um,
I got
you
to go
know,
to bed. I got to go to bed in 5 hours. Okay.
as we as we I continue to recover and continue to um, you know uh, get back to whatever this new version of normal is. I doctored a lot. Went to a lot of appointments and things. There was a neurologist, Dr. Hayter in Bismarck, that was very persistent in trying to find out why I had the stroke. And so he, at first, he had me get an MRI, and they saw the scar tissue on my brain. And he says, "Okay, we got to figure out why you had the stroke." And so he ordered a series of tests. One of which was they took a camera and went on the backside of my heart to inspect that. When they did, they discovered the hole in
Oh,
my heart the size of a bottle cap. Oh,
holy
and
cow.
Jeff, when they said that, it's like everything just became centered. Okay, just everything in my whole entire life, 60 plus years, all of a sudden made sense. We hear the metaphors, wholehearted, put your heart into it. Well, I couldn't do that physically. I had a hole in my heart,
So
as big
so
as a bottle cap.
and
Yeah.
did it affect your, I mean, did you were sluggish? I mean, like, you would think that really would affect your, I never saw you as anything other than an active guy. I never saw you being tired.
Yeah, I was out of breath. I was uphill to the house. I'd run out of breath, and yeah, it would affect me over the years, and as I got older, even more so. And I was born with this thing. I had this from day one.
So
And
did they
so
sew it up then, or what'd they do?
here's what okay, this is interesting. What they did was they took a catheter and went up through my groin. And first of all, they don't knock you out completely.
Well, that's
And
good
so
to know.
I'm laying there, in the room, and there's a big screen monitor off to my left, and I could see my heart, doing this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm watching this thing, and it looks like a bottle brush comes and it goes inside my heart. And what they were doing there was they take that catheter, they go through that hole in your heart, and they deploy what's called gore cardioform, which is a material to seal up the hole. They put one
Super
on
glue.
one. Exactly, a tire patch. And they back up and they put another one on the other side, and they clamp it together, and eventually over 6 months, and I'm just about there, your heart has grows scar tissue over that gore cardioform, and you're healed in that sense. However, 90% of the people who have this procedure, they go into AFib, really serious AFib. So because your heart
Does that
doesn't
mean a
like
heart
pumping.
attack? Is
No,
that
you're out of breath, and you're
the
you're
heart just starts
dizzy,
doing
and oh
erratic?
my
Yeah.
god, yeah, you're out of rhythm, you're out of sync.
Yeah.
And I should mention too that they embedded a heart monitor in that I got to wear for about 3 years. There's a heart monitor right here, right now,
Right
and
on
so
top of the microphone, you slapped. I just want you to know that. That's right on
oh,
top of the microphone.
sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm kidding,
Anyway,
man. I'm kidding.
yeah, they after about 2 weeks of this, they called me and said, "Bill, you're an AFib. You got to get to the hospital." And so, I mean, kind of serious, but I mean, it was like a Friday. So it says you got to be in
Mhm.
here on Monday, and so I went in on Monday, and they knocked me out, and they shocked me back into rhythm. Yeah,
Could you
babango.
feel it? Could you feel that?
I was sleeping. I was asleep for that one.
I
I
don't
was
know if you
asleep.
felt it. I mean,
And they got it back into rhythm, and they put me on some really heavy medication for a while. They're starting to back off on it now. But ever since then, it's been a little bit better each and every day. Now, after that things changed. I mean, I'm just a little bit off, whether it's getting a Keurig cup out of the box,
mhm,
or doing these little tasks like reaching for a comb, or doing a
mhm.
craft project. I'm just a little bit off ever since that time. However, things make so much more sense. There's so much more clarity now since this occurred. Like, for instance, in my workshop, I walked in and I'm like, why is that garbage can way over there? And it's been there for 15 years when it would better service right here. And so I moved that. Another level of mystique to this whole thing was I used to golf. Remember Steve Thompson on your
Sure.
station there?
Yeah,
I used
yeah.
to go golfing a lot. And I was a fair golfer.
He
And
was
then
good.
yeah, and then I hurt my back, and so I got rid of my clubs, and I picked them up again, and my son and I went golfing and on a simulator, and I golfed the game of my life. Everything, the muscle memory was working, and I could hit. And then his buddy who was with him was a scratch golfer. He says, "Bill, you have a gift, and your gift is golf." And so there's that. Another thing that on those lines, Jeff, this all ties together. I've always been a fan of the Blue Angels, the
Mhm.
Navy fly team. And it just amazed me. How did they do this? They were in Sioux Falls a few years ago at the air show, and I'm like watching that, and I can't figure it out. How in the heck do they fly and come within 18 inches of each other like they do? But now I can watch them on TV and or see demonstrations like that, and it just makes sense. They're on a grid. They have a grid. They use computer grids and they follow that to the T, and they practice, 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 and it makes more sense. Before it seemed like that whole thing with the Blue Angels was impossible, but now I can see how they do it. There's been other for instances like that. So when I told you earlier that I'm not the same person, I'm a changed man, there's that level of transition as well.
Yeah. So, to the point, I'm a creative person. So being organized is difficult for me. I just don't think that way, right? I have a Christmas show, and I have a box full of stories that people. It's just literally in an orange crate box. And my wife one day says, "Well, why don't you triple punch these and put these in a 3 ring binder?" And I went like, right, because that's how disorganized I am. And so it's interesting that all of these physical things apparently rewired part of your brain to make you a little more analytical than you were. Wow.
Yeah, it's been when I say amazing, Jeff, that's probably
Well, I can't wait for your next health crisis. This is going to be astonishing. I mean, wow, wow. I'm just, is your liver going to explode now? I mean, I don't know. This could be. I
no. I,
can't
I
wait
quit
for the
drinking.
next interview.
Remember, I think the liver is just fine.
Well,
uh,
so to just a quick loop around on Teddy Roosevelt. There's a guy
okay,
who's a friend of yours who's an impersonator, and I wanted to go see him yesterday, but you need to know that he's sold out. I could not get into the
really,
room, so
I'm
I'm going
not
to see if
surprised.
I can catch him another time. I just want to say, as you touched upon, as bigger systems collapse, and I'm talking about national news organizations, so something will come up from the grassroots, and you are a perfect example of that. North Dakota is a beautiful place with a beautiful history, and you are beautifully placed to tell beautiful stories of that. And I think that's God ordained. I just want to pour that into you. I was thinking, I wrote this down this morning. People, they don't want advice, they want encouragement. And you don't need any advice. And I don't know if you need encouragement, but you're going to get it anyway. Bill, God is doing great things with you. It makes me emotional just to think about. To see what you're doing in your trajectory is just super, super powerful. And I'm so thankful for you and your story. Now, as I said, everybody gets one question and one question only. Bill, you only get one question. You can ask me any question you want and only one question. And we'll end the show on that, shall we?
Jeff, when it's all said and done, and we perish from this life, we transition from this lifestyle to the next, and the name Jeff Gould comes across somebody's mind. How do you want them to remember you by, other than a storyteller?
You know, there is some hints about what heaven might look like. John wrote about this, and some of it you see in Revelations, which is usually talks about all the bad news, all the things that'll happen. But they describe a heaven and it apparently is like a big cube. If you were to go from South Dakota down to the middle of Texas and make that square, it's a huge cube. There's a river that runs through it, and there's the tree of life, which has 12 kinds of fruits on it. And it's eternity. I think, Bill, we live to a clock, don't we? And we just have that PST, post traumatic stress. Let's go. We got to go. We got to go. We got to go. And we won't have to go. We'll get to be. And in the scriptures, it says there's faith, there's hope, there's love, and the greatest of these is love. I've always wondered about that. Well, hey, there will come a time when you won't need hope because hope will be fulfilled. There will come a time when you won't need faith because your faith will be answered. It will just be this commonality of love. And I don't know what it is going to be like, Bill, but I feel like it's just like you and I right now, just having conversations. And I don't want people to say a word. I feel like it's just going to be, "Hi, Bill. How are you? Good to see you, Jeff. I haven't seen you since we don't know when." And we sit and we just enjoy each other's company. And you just multiply that by all the people you ever met. And it isn't a sense of description. I think it's a sense of being.
Yes.
Doesn't that sound nice? I feel like that's
I think what you're saying, Jeff, is kind of like, when it rains for 3 days, then all of a sudden the sun comes out and the raindrops are falling off the leaves on the trees, and that beautiful
uh-huh.
sunshine is filtered through those raindrops. That's heaven. That's heaven.
It's a glimpse of what heaven could
It's a
be.
glimpse. You're right. Yes,
And
absolutely.
I think that one of the joys of living in a place where there is less civilization and more nature, that you are allowed to see I'll just give you a quick example. So I'm out on my back porch and I'm having a cup of coffee, and that's where I do my devotional stuff. I just sit out there, and I just happened to glance up, and I saw a white owl heading towards me, and those things move like 30 miles an
Yeah.
hour. And their feathers are such that have little um, their feathers are frayed, and that allows them to move with complete silence. And as I look up, I see this owl coming at me at about 30 miles an hour, and it just turns on a dime, a 90-degree angle, and just goes and disappears into a bunch of trees that I would have sworn were entangled, but it just knew like your story of the Blue Angels. It knew exactly where it was going, and it went. And there was nobody to witness that but me. But I think about that. And it's your stories with the rain through the leaves. I think you just get these tiny little tastes and you savor them in memory. And someday they will they get you through tough times, and they are an hors d'oeuvre to what will come in fruition someday.
In those near death experiences that I've studied, a lot of them talk about trees being a big part of their experience when they transition to the other
Hmm,
side. The
hmm.
trees are alive. And, along with that, nature is a big part of that too. When I say that, uh, you can almost count every single leaf on that tree, and they're walking barefoot, and they could count the blades of grass on their bare feet. I really look forward to experiencing that. Again, I'm in no hurry, but that's going to be one of the rewards.
Well, it's a side note, and I don't know if this is going to come true or not. It is an interesting side note. I'm watching this stuff that shows up on your feed. And some Japanese scientist has discovered, you're aging because it's a replication of a cell and another one and another one. And eventually there's some flaws built in the system, like taking a copy of a copy. And eventually you age, you get old, your skin wrinkles, and you die. Well, they think that they're going to come up with this and they can stop this. They have some little enzymes that are apparently stopping and reversing this age process. So now you can live as long as you want. And I'm thinking to myself, why?
Yeah,
I
I
thought, I
agree.
thought, why? And then at the same time, kind of like your mom, I'm going like, wow, if they said, well, Jeff, why don't you just take this pill and you can hang out for another 100 years? I don't know that I would have the courage to say no. So I'm just curious if that will actually come to fruition. Man plans and God laughs. But to your point, this is like the waiting room. We're in a restaurant, it's crowded, and we're just hanging out in the waiting room until they call our name and we can go in where the real banquet is kind of what I feel life is like. So we enjoy each other's company, but this is just the precursor. Bill, oh my goodness. I actually do have to go to bed here in a few hours. I got to eat some
If
supper
we can
too.
do this again,
Yeah.
there's going to be a part two to my story, and
Mm.
I'm focused on telling my story at the Memorial Day celebration, but the problems that I had with my father, and I've made an attempt on his life at one point, and I hope to share more of that with you in a future story. I have so much respect for you, my
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
Gracious, I have gratitude for this time. And gosh, thank you. This has been fun. This has been a blast. I've really enjoyed this.
Now, sometime on your show up there in North Dakota, when you burn through all of the guests and you wanted somebody to come in and just chew the fat with you, put my name on your Rolodex. We might have some fun there, should we? Yeah,
Oh,
we should
let's
do
do
that.
that.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
All right.
Absolutely. Um, yes, and maybe even we'll do it off the outside of the show, and we'll just talk until the batteries are dead on the camera. How's that? That's how you do that.
That's how
That's
you
how
do
you do
that.
the
Yeah, you
constraints of
drain the
broadcast
batteries.
television. That's the next thing that I'm frustrated with, the restraints of, 2 10-minute segments for your half-hour show. No, let's just go until we have nothing left, until we don't like each other anymore.
That's right.
That will never happen.
No. God bless you, Bill. Take care now.
Thanks, my friend.